Welcome to Raging Bullets, 330, Pop Culture and Whatnot, Episode 1. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin. I wish he was a walker, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
For a great conversational episode, huh? This episode, it wasn't intentional. We were going to talk about Walking Dead and a few other things, but our conversation really was heavily focused on Walking Dead. And we're going to try on these episodes to stay, this is our first doing this, stay around an hour. And that doesn't mean we're always going to be totally stuck to that kind of limitation. It really was, our conversation ended after about an hour, and it was all Walking Dead related. And we're going to do one of these probably about once a month, and it's a brand new thing that we're doing, a chance to kind of step outside of our little format that we've had before. So we hope you guys really, really enjoy this. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Jim, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is your comic book pre-order source. Please make sure to check them out. They're supporting our show. They are a Comixology digital partner. If you're like me and you like to do like this hybrid where you're buying digital comics and paper comics and things like that, if you use your Comixology account or any digital account from DCBService.com, 5% of every one of your purchases gives you credit at DCBService.com that you start building, that you can buy free things or just use it to increase your discount, that they're already discounting things 50% and beyond. It's insane the discounts you can get from DCBService.com. I'm a huge fan, and it's not just because they are a sponsor of our show. I was using them before they became a sponsor of our show, so it's really great that I'm able to shout out something that has really saved me a lot of money and enabled me to read more on the comic book end. And InStockTrades.com, they offer you amazing discounts on trades, hardcovers, collected editions. Orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So please check out both of our sponsors. They support a lot of podcasts, and they're really just great companies and great people. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Be wary, be warned, and be prepared. Pop Culture and Whatnot, a division of Raging Bullets, is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into the TV shows, movie, and whatnot that we're discussing on this show. So please check our show notes for the subject matter. This way we can all enjoy the show.
Jim, look out behind you. Let's talk some Walking Dead.
There they are, all alone except for that old character.
Jim, this is our first Pop Culture and Whatnot episode. You and I have been wanting to do something like this for a long time and trying to figure out how, because we didn't want to give up the Raging Bullets show, the DC fan podcast that we've been doing for 6 years, over 6 years now. So we wanted to find a way, and we kind of constantly talk about like what other niche podcasts we could do. The problem has always been time. So we thought this would be a fun solution, is roughly once a month to be able to do like a just quick 1 hour program where we talk about just some of the things that are outside of DC that we're really enjoying. And we decided on this first one to kick off with talking about the TV show that is, and actually the concept and phenomenon that is, The Walking Dead. What's your history with The Walking Dead?
History with Walking Dead is, thank you, Sensei brother, my brother Bill. He introduced it to me one of the times I was visiting him in New Jersey. And it was just completely blew me away. Reading, the book and the concept. And I wasn't a big zombie fan, so when he first said, hey, you got to read this, I was like, I'm not a big zombie fan. He's like, oh, no, it's really good. So then that was it. And it's funny, after that, I started enjoying zombie movies. I started watching zombie movies, and, it opened the door for me. So for me, that was my intro to it. And then as I'm reading, and I was pretty much just reading that, and it was during the period then when I drifted away from comics again, and I just, kind of stopped reading it. Then we started back up with comics, and I just never really got back into it. But there was always, I'd see stuff like, oh yeah, oh cool, Walking Dead's still around, oh cool. And then when the TV show came, I'm just all back in now, and I'm going back, I'm getting trades, I'm getting, just filling in the collection, reading everything that's going on in the in the book, comparing it to the TV show, wondering, where they're going to go next. So I'm all, 100% full on back in.
One of the things that I really love, I got pretty far into the series, and then we started doing our podcast. And I'd been reading it, not right from the get-go, but I remember Comic Geek Speak did the first trade, the first collection of Walking Dead, and we're just raving this thing. So I jumped on really right after the first trade was released. And I've been a fan of the series ever since. When we started doing our podcast, because we do such depth to the DC books, I tend to get behind on a lot of things that are outside of DC, and Walking Dead was one of those series that I did. I kept collecting it, though, because of the quality of it. Well, the great part about getting pretty far into the series initially and watching the television show is the television show, while it follows the basic storyline of Walking Dead, there's all kinds of crazy twists and turns. Like, there's characters that are dead in the comics that are alive on the TV show. There's characters that are alive in the comics that are very dead in the TV show. And I really like that. I like that, I feel like it's being brought to life on the screen before me, but you don't really know who's going to live and who's going to die because of the fact that they're willing to take a different path on the TV series. Yet it feels very much like everything I adore about The Walking Dead. But I think that's been, it's a survival horror comic. And if you go under that concept, there should always be an intensity in reading the comic and watching every episode of the television show for your favorites. What is going to happen to them? And I like that this particular concept doesn't feel like it has to directly adhere to one or the other. Because I think if you did that, you would lose that. Because I don't know about you, every time I'm watching an episode of the TV show, I'm afraid for everybody. Who's next?
Anybody can die. And that's the beauty about the concept of Walking Dead. The characters that we're reading about or watching aren't technically the main characters. The main characters is this universe, is this zombie apocalypse. So you can kill off everybody we know as long as those zombies are still around and there'll be somebody to deal with them. Guess what? You have a show or you have a book. It'll be a different direction because it's a different group, but it's still out there. So anybody can die. And I think that's part of the excitement and my enjoyment of both the comic and the TV show, especially because we're seeing that on the TV show, they're not willing. They are willing to kill off main characters, and that was something I was worried about. I was worried, you got the whole Hollywood thing. Are they gonna stick to what is the true, vibe behind the zombie? No. They'll kill off main characters. They'll kill off people that you're like, oh, they should be protected. What? Oh my God, she's dead.
That's one of the things that I really like, though, is with Kirkman's heavy involvement in all this, his focus on making sure that the TV show, while it sticks to that, again, I go back to that theme, you don't know who's going to live and who's going to die. Like Herschel. Herschel still being a part of the group at this point in season 3 is something that really has divorced itself from the comic, because in the comic, they left Herschel. So it's a very different, and the incident at the farm played out very differently in the comic than it did on the TV show. Thematically, it all fits because of what Herschel was doing and, all the people that they were keeping inside the farm and all that. It all fits, but it played out very differently. I like that. To me, that was something that really stood out. I thought both situations were just as heartfelt. It even to the point where there's certain characters like Glenn who are still with the crew on the TV show, but that played out differently in the comic as well. So I like that because it's very fresh, very different in how all that played out. And I'm trying to be a little bit vague on the comic book end, even more so than on the TV show end, because most of our focus is going to be on the TV show when we discuss it. But you can't help but discuss that there's some drastic differences that I think keep with the theme of you never know what's going to happen. You never know who these horrible events they go through are going to impact, where they're going to say, you know what, I can't run with you anymore. Because there's times where, even in the prison, let's talk about the recent season, where they've got these prisoners who they're keeping in this other cell block. And not everyone in their group agrees with how they should handle them. And that type of philosophical debate takes a crew that is very close-knit and, drawn together and starts to put dissension between them. And it's real dissension, because I could see our group, let's take our friendship group, people we've grown up with, and we're all stuck in this place, and we come upon 2 prisoners in the prison. I could see it amongst our friendship group, the people that we've grown up with, these type of heavy debates based on background, where some of us would feel like we should let them join our group. Others of us would feel like those prisoners should be kept there, not necessarily even putting prejudice on the prisoners. It's more of we've got to protect our group. We've got to protect the young ones that are in our group, things like that. And then the people who may be on the other end where they're going, I've worked in this type of, in prisons and things like that. We've got to be very careful on how we handle this. So you could have 3 different categories and then some, which all of those events, all of those deep-rooted events could cause major battles, major words that are said that you can't take back, that take a group that previously was like brothers and sisters and starts to fragment them, and might cause a person or two, not necessarily even dying, to leave the group because they feel like they can't stay and feel like they can move forward with their life, or even feel that the group is a safe and productive place for them to be philosophically on how they want to survive in this world. And those type of psychological things that go on are things that I really love about the series, where you wonder where people are at, how much they trust each other. And from episode to episode, I think who's a friend and who's on a tentative line varies drastically from each episode.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's one of the neat things that I liked was the deviations, and it's even slight deviations. You mentioned, like, with the farm, how things played out. Well, in the TV show, one of the big reasons things played out dramatically different was because Shane was still alive for the farm. In the comic, Shane was already dead. But Shane's personality, Shane's presence there on the farm completely changed how the group reacted. And I like the fact that we get these moments. We get this variations and deviations from it. And it's one of those kind of, exciting things of the differences and similarities between the two. You have this solid foundation that is the Walking Dead comic, and they're now taking it and tweaking it. And it's an Elseworld story. It's another variation. It's a what if this happened. There's multiple, different ways you can look at it. And it's one of the things that always gets me is I have a group of friends at work. We all watch Walking Dead, and we talk Walking Dead. Now, of everybody, I'm the only one who's read the original comic, but we each have our own different, take on, zombies, on horror, and on the books, and on the show. So it's always kind of an interesting discussion as we're going through, saying, well, what about this? What about this? And just throwing out different ideas that could happen. And I sometimes catch myself, and I don't want to say stuff that actually happens, happened in the comic, just in case it does come out. Like,
go ahead, go ahead and say it, because.
No, I'm talking.
At work you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking at work.
I thought you meant here.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I'm talking. At the work, like when the death of Shane, the way he died. I refuse to tell anybody how he died, just because that was such a cool moment. And we still got, it was little variations in the TV show than what it was in the comic, but that was still a great moment. Just like some of the stuff that goes on in the prison, with Lori being pregnant, with the birth of the baby, everything that happens through that stuff. There's these neat moments that you're just like, yay! Oh my God, I can't believe they did that.
Here's a great example. Like, my wife and I watched the television show together. Now, she's never read the comic, but she'll ask me if certain characters live or die. And like Shane, I knew what was going to happen with Shane. That eventually, there was a target on him. Because I didn't see Shane surviving super long. They kept him around way longer than I thought they were going to. And I really loved that, because I thought not just for what was going on with Rick and his family, but with Andrea. I thought it progressed her story in a way that I thought was really neat. Because in the comic, Andrea winds up with the older gentleman. Yeah. She doesn't wind up with Shane the way that she did. So it was neat to kind of see how that relationship, because Shane was alive and the two of them feeling kind of disenfranchised from everybody, that they would develop a bond and a friendship. And I liked that Andrea, as the story progressed in the television show, matured beyond that, which I think adds to the moments with her being split off with the group now and being with Michonne. The way that it's playing out in the television show, I think, is all the more powerful because of the journey we saw her go on with Shane. Like the Michonne stuff, first of all, the casting of Michonne was absolutely top notch because I think she's got to look cool. And boy, there's taking a comic character and there is not a single bit of cheese to that character. It's just like you can't help but high five with Michonne. And I love the way the actress is playing her, how even in not saying things, the way that she watches people and studies them, the governor and all of the people that that are in that town and analyzing them. It just plays out so well that her character would react and behave that way. It feels very natural to her. I feel like I really know that character in an excessively short amount of time because of how well she's written and how well that actress is really playing the character, because I just think Michonne's fantastic.
Oh, God, yeah. And she's one of those characters that, when they first started doing the TV show, people started calling for us and, when are we going to get in here? When are we, just because she is just that really, really just awesome character type. And I was so excited when we first got the first visions of her. Then we started seeing her in action. And this past season, where we're really getting kind of the meat and potatoes and just diving into who she is, this has been a great adaptation, a great version, a great characterization of her. And I gotta say, just the actress who is playing her is just so spot on. It's, this is what I pictured her sounding like, what I pictured her looking like, how I pictured her physically presenting herself. I'm seeing it on the TV show. And that is just, I was very excited, very pleased with what I was getting, on the show. This was one of those moments where really the physical adaptation was as good, if not better, than what was going on in my head.
And it was Dale that she wound up with in the comics.
Yeah.
And Dale passed away in it, which I love the way that played out, because that was a death that I didn't see coming, the way that it happened. That kind of intensity. I thought Herschel was a goner.
Yeah.
And the fact that Herschel's still around, I mean, talk about a guy who seems to be bulletproof.
Hey, Herschel's throwing down. He's hard as nails, and I like that. I hope he sticks around a little bit longer. I'd like a couple more seasons out of the guy. You don't know, but I'm hoping he pulls off. And another character that, if he dies, I think I'm going to riot, and that'll be Daryl.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Daryl is just an awesome character that he started off very one-sided, very, and he's just, his character, his personality, just who he is, has just flourished and just developed. And he's now one of those guys you're like, you want him, you want to hang out with him. You want him watching your back, you'll watch his. And he's a character that dramatically has changed over these couple seasons and has dramatically grown as a person. So it feels very natural. Daryl
versus Merle is what I want to see.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because, you see the inevitable meeting of those two characters again. Because it's got to lead to that with this whole governor thing that's going on. The governor, the casting of that's just brilliant as well. But Merle being brought back in with that group, and that group kind of being a spot where Merle can be doing a lot of what Daryl's doing. Because Daryl, in many ways, is training with his little core group that he's with. Being the hunter and doing the things that he and Merle used to do together. Merle doing it with these fights that they have staged. I mean, that stuff is for entertainment. Governor's matter-of-fact attitude with that when Andrea's like getting sickened by the whole thing because, of what Andrea has been through on her own. I really love Andrea's wariness as far as she sees a town. It's a city. For this to have been developed and kind of being a bubble in the midst of all this nonsense and having this illusion of normalcy, Michonne seeing it for what it is, like Michonne sees through the illusion. She burst the bubble very early on. I think Michonne burst the bubble in the first 5 minutes of being there, especially when her swords were gone. Or her sword was gone, I should say. I think Michonne was pretty much so done with those people. It's kind of like, I don't trust you. I'm not going to trust you. You can paint whatever. You can put whatever window dressing on your town you want to. I'm done with you. That's Michonne. I'm convinced after watching a few episodes of this where Andrea, was, and I get where Andrea was going. You're getting the luxuries, the comforts and conveniences of ice.
Yeah.
Ice at the celebration was like something like, wow, you've got this here? Ice? I loved the way that was written and how it all played out because I could see why Andrea was, saying, we could fit in here. We could make a life here. We could be a part of all this. And the governor really trying to play all of that because looking at Michonne's a weapon that if he can get Michonne to see his way of thinking, she would be a powerful ally in what he's doing to really stamp out anybody that could ever pose potential opposition to what he's doing. And that's really what it is. He doesn't want them, like with the military when he took them out in that one episode. For the governor, I'm convinced it's about not letting anybody take control of his little world. He's got the little world that he's crafted there exactly with a certain sense of order that he wants it to have. The military coming in, they're an authority figure. They come in, they are going to change the rules gradually, and I get it. And rightfully so that they should. They're going to try to come from a government standpoint saying, hey, let's all band together. Let's find others who are like us. Let's try to open this area that you've got up. And I would think the military would try to expand their area and let more people in to try to, bring back society as we know it. And as they should. The governor's craziness is he wants to keep it small and controlled, letting certain people in that are preferred, stomping out the people who are not, based on how they could shake up his little world. And it's funny how he's manipulating Merle, trying to keep Merle from going after his brother, because I don't think the issue is just bringing Daryl in. I think his other worry is what comes with Daryl.
The other side you run into is right now he's got Merle pretty much in control. You add Merle's brother in there, that's going to change the dynamic.
Yes.
Merle's going to have somebody that he knows will watch his back, who will, if he decides to rise up, he knows Daryl will have it. And I think that's part of the governor's concern about him looking for his brother and keeping him in control. And it's about the power and the perception of the power and not losing Merle also. If Merle would have gone off searching for his brother, then he definitely would have lost a very powerful tool that, he's a hard guy to replace. This is his enforcer. This is the guy who does his dirty work for him, who has no problem doing the dirty work. So you don't want to lose that, just even if it's for a month, a week, a day. That's somebody you want to keep close. You want to keep a tight leash on, but there's a lot of going on. And with this governor, I really like the fact that he doesn't come across as smarmy or slimy. There is a charm to him. There is a politician type of presence to him. Yeah, there is a creep factor to him as well, and Michonne sees that right away. But to everybody else, there's this, hey, yeah, how you doing? Yeah, that nice smile, but not the used car salesman smile. It's a friendly, inviting, we're gonna get through this together kind of personality. And I love just how they're writing him, how they're portraying him, and how the actor is just bringing the character out.
One actor I want to shout out, and I want to make sure to make a point to it. Have you seen interviews with Andrew Lincoln?
Yes.
Oh my, I am endlessly impressed by actors and actresses who are able to drop heavy accents that they've got from their background. Like, you see him in interviews, I'm like, how does he pull that off? Because he's got a very heavy accent. And I'm endlessly amazed at the acting talent of people that are able to, because his Rick Grimes, the evolution of Rick Grimes from the unsure guy who wakes up in the hospital to this leader, to the guy who snaps at the death of his wife, the emotion range that this guy's able to pull off, dropping his accent and really making himself, the believable American cop that he pulls himself off to be. I really love that aspect of it, and trying to keep a sense of law and order and right and wrong when it doesn't always make sense in this world. It's something that I really respect about the way this series works psychologically. And this character, this actor, I think is just brilliant.
I've been watching The Talking Dead this season. I didn't watch it in the past season, so it's kind of a neat experience. And they had Iron E. Singleton, who played T-Dog. Respect. Yeah, you got to throw that out, because that guy was just an amazing character, and he was one of the characters I was like, no! I actually yelled out loud when it was his turn to say goodbye. But when he was on the show there, he and Chris Hardwick were talking about him, about the actor, and they said it was interesting that the voice always stays in character. He always stays, because he doesn't go back and forth between, in between takes, in between sets. So he was sitting there talking to him about his place in England. And he's just talking about, where he's living, but he's using the Rick Grimes voice talking about this, English countryside. And he said it was an odd kind of moment for him. He's like, oh yeah, he is over there. And it's one of those, kind of, going to co-sign you're impressed, how impressed I am with a lot of these actors who were able to pull this kind of stuff off. Because you look at Rick, he's not just doing a Georgia cop accent, just over the top type of y'all come back here. He's not doing. It's an honest to God true accent, and you hear the voice variations when he's upset, when he's angry, when he's just talking to his son, when he's cracking a joke, and when he's those very rare moments when you hear him laughing. He really goes through that, and he's a character that I am really impressed, and I'm so glad with the casting of him.
Laurie and Carl, I thought, was great casting as well, because Laurie, the relationship with Rick, dealing with the fact that you can sympathize with her. Thought Rick was dead. Not even just thinking Rick was dead. You're in this situation where you see so much death around you. Shane's there, and you need comfort. There's very human things going on there. Was she right or wrong in what she did? Well, I mean, that's a heck of a debate you could get into. And then you get into Shane's handling of everything, especially after Rick returns. Like, obviously he had feelings for Laurie that he never should have had long before all this went down. But then buried them and obviously maintained a strong friendship with Rick, but then made decisions then to be weak, especially when Rick returned. I don't necessarily have an issue morally with what happened between Rick and Shane. Considering the circumstances and everything that happened, it was what it was. I could even see where Rick ultimately would have forgiven both of them for what happened there. But the way Shane handled everything after that, how he became obsessed and unable to let go, becomes a huge problem. Then there's the baby, yeah, which is still going to be an issue because, in the TV series right now, the dad has not been identified. That's still something that's going to be an issue. Is it Rick's? Is it Shane's? The timing tends to lead more in the TV show, especially more towards the former than the latter.
Yeah, I'm thinking if we had Maury still around, he'd be like, Rick, you are not the baby's daddy.
Right. That was something that I really enjoyed about the series so far, has been Rick and Laurie trying to deal with that. With where everything went with Shane, the strain it put on the two of them. Laurie's feelings when Rick took out Shane. Because... go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, because that kind of, angered me.
Really?
Yeah, when she was she got PO'd, and, she got mad that Rick killed off Shane. I'm like, hold on. And I think that was part of Rick's anger and resentment towards Laurie, was the fact that she should have been more supportive of Rick in his decision to take out Shane.
Here's me playing devil's advocate on Laurie's end, though. I don't know that necessarily Laurie was doing that because of her own feelings for Shane. It's the uncertainty of who the baby's father is. That could be her baby's dad. And I could see that part of her being, really wanting to stay with her husband, Rick, and being honest and faithful there. But then that part of her, because she really did push Shane away and did put that line down. But when the baby came into the equation, that's now potentially one of the possible fathers of her child. That's going to put a different emotional spin on things, because that's a mother who's now looking at her child and saying, that could be your dad. And your dad's now been killed by the guy who may or may not be raising you, depending on how he tends to react on all of this. It's a very tough emotional roller coaster. I think that's why she had such trouble as well. Agreeing also with everything you're saying, where I was mad at her, but then I saw her side of it, then I was mad at her, then I saw her side of it, I was mad at Rick, then I saw his side of it. And I think in that type of trap that the two of them were in, it was such a hopeless situation to ever get back to normalcy, because of not only is all that going on, but you're also on the run. You have to be together. So you can't even, as a couple, say, are we making the choice to be together? We have to, no matter what happens, no matter how bad things are between us, we have to stay together. We have to protect our son, Carl. We have to, come to some conclusion about how we're going to handle this baby, whatever that's going to be. And they might not necessarily agree on that. Is bringing the baby into the world a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. And what it ultimately did to Lori, was one of those things that I was like, whoa. I loved the way that played out. I loved the way the actor who plays Carl. I thought he was amazing. And I love that it was Carl. I love the way that Carl handled it. I love that it was done off camera. We saw everything right up until that moment. You didn't need to see that on camera. And I honestly think if you saw that on camera, that would have been I think it would have taken something away from that moment. Because we saw everything we needed to see. And the way that Carl walked out and how he had to deal with that. But then Rick's reaction from all of that. Just some of the most powerful moments this season that I've seen on television were played out here. And I think that's where, again, you talk about casting. The cast of this show are just amazing. Herschel's family, who's still traveling with them, they're well cast. I love that Herschel's still with them. I really, really do, because I always loved the character in the comics. I love that the character has grown beyond what he was in the comics and becomes something more. In many ways, he becomes a conscience of the group.
Yeah, Chandler Riggs is the young boy who plays Carl. And I got to throw out the name just because he is just doing an amazing job. Just the emotional range, just everything at such a young age to be able to pull that off. And that look on his face, that just look of death, that look of just, it was beyond. He's like, he had to put down his own mother. Mm-hmm. After watching her suffer in death. Giving birth to his little sister, and just the amount of pain and suffering she went through. And there was that level of calm she had before it, saying, no, this is okay. This is, what it's got to be. You got to take care of, you're a good kid. Do the right thing. You always do the right thing. And she has those really cool mom moments, and he's got to, put her down. And it was just like, I love just how that was handled and how that was played out, and seeing, Rick's reaction. I always wonder when he completely loses it. Is he losing it over the fact that Lori's dead, or is he losing it because he realized that Carl had to be the one to put her down? Because you first see him say no. Then he looks in Carl's eyes. He sees the blank stare in Carl's eyes. He goes, no! It was like that moment right then when he realized my son just had to put down his own mother.
Not even that, though, dude. You got to take it to another level then. This is the woman he loved. And I don't think it was until that moment that he realized, what was I doing? All of the things I let come between us. In that moment, Rick realized that none of it was worth it. None of it was worth keeping Lori away from him. Look how short life was. They were starting to, in many ways, find their way to an understanding before this happened. Maybe, potentially, finding their way back together. And I think there's that part of him that now is saying to himself, regrettably, what could have been?
How should I have handled this?
Right. And should we have been, how many times should I have told her I still love you? Because that's obviously what was happening there, too. I think everything you said is 100% true. I think why that moment makes him snap is he was hit by that from every possible level. Everywhere he turned, everywhere he looked. Regret over the way the situation was handled. What if he was there with Lori and protecting her instead of where he was? You know, I mean, all of the things that could have happened differently because of that. He'll never be able to ever fully recover from that. There will always be that scar, major, huge, gaping scar that he's got to deal with emotionally inside him. I don't know, it was something that I just really hit on and I really loved because it felt very real. To the point where he snapped, and even Glenn, who really has been in the show, out of everybody who's still a part of it, for us as the viewer, Glenn's been that confidant that's been there with Rick because, you know, he and Rick hooked up, and that's how he wound up getting reconnected with Lori and Shane and Carl and the whole crew. You know, that was how Rick's introduction to this band that he was there. Glenn was the first one. When he and Glenn are there in that moment face to face, Rick can't even snap back for Glenn. They can't even have that moment together where like there's that clarity between the two of them that you would kind of expect between the two. And there was something I just really loved about the way that all played out, and being Glenn in particular, because Glenn in the comics was in a different place as this whole prison thing went down. Glenn was no longer with them.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm running into issues in my brain, remembering where people were at different times, remembering who's a brand new character and, you know, who wasn't even in the comic. And the discussion I always have, Merle and Daryl, they're TV show creations, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was remembering someone vaguely that kind of seemed like Merle when they're at the very beginning of the issue of the comic series, but I couldn't remember if that was actually them.
Yeah, I know for sure Daryl 100% is. I don't think Merle was in the comics, if I remember. I don't think so.
Because I thought they had somebody who was redneckish, but the guy died, you know, when that first herd attacked the group.
Yeah,
But I can't remember. And to be honest, part of me keeps thinking, you know, just pull out your comics and reread them. But I don't know, for some reason, I haven't been... Well, I've ordered the... some of the deluxe edition stuff. I'm waiting for that to arrive. Once that arrives, I'll probably reread everything from the beginning, you know, up until, you know, through the whatever the current issue is.
No, I'm pretty positive that Merle was not a character that appeared in both. Because I think he appeared in the TV series, and it looks like, I'm looking online, it looks like he appeared in the social game too.
Oh, okay.
The Walking Dead social game. Speaking of games, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Telltale Games published. It's kind of, remember the old point-and-click adventure games?
Yeah.
There's been a resurgence of those, and a company called Telltale makes like really high-quality ones, and they've done ones for the Back to the Future series, for example. They did ones for Bone. They've done Sam & Max, which was a classic PC game. They brought those back. I really enjoy their adventure games. Well, they got the Walking Dead license to do that, and they've done an episodic series. It's 5 episodes of The Walking Dead. And the idea, the premise behind the game is some of it takes place at the very start of all this, where you are this convicted felon, convicted of murder, Lee, and you play this character driving in a police vehicle when all of a sudden the police vehicle winds up hitting one of the walkers. And the police officer, and this is right in the very start of it, the police officer you're with gets bit, and Lee now is in a situation where he's on the run. You know, your question all the way through it is Lee innocent? Is Lee guilty? Lee starts encountering people along the way and a band of people. And I don't want to go too far into it other than to say the great thing about it is feels very much like a comic book adaptation in the sense that it feels like it's a side story for the comic. So like this could be a mini series that goes along concurrently with The Walking Dead, even the TV series. But the cool part is there are characters from the television show that appear in the game that predate their appearances in both the comics and the TV show. So you see certain characters at certain points of time. You'll even appear, and I'll tease this a little bit, you appear at a certain farm before anybody does in the comics or the television show.
Oh, nice.
So,
nice.
And I'll leave it at that because you want to experience those events other than that. But the reason why I consider that worth mentioning, there's somebody who's like, I don't know, I'm not really into that kind of thing. If you are into expanding the Walking Dead story, that's the kind of thing you can expect from this game. It expands certain elements of the story, while at the same time having a morality system. As Lee, you have conversations, you have actions that you have to take that have moral decisions, and they have consequences with the people you're traveling with. They remember your actions from episode to episode. Characters live and characters die based on your decisions. And sometimes you have to choose between saving one character and saving another, because you can't save both. The choice of who lives and who dies changes the story as well. So your actions have a direct impact on the story. It's a linear story with divergent paths based on your decisions. It's terrific. For anybody out there who likes these, you don't have to be like a heavy-duty gamer to appreciate this game. It's a mixture of the old classic point-and-click storytelling with some of the quick-timer events from like games like Shenmue and stuff like that, where all of a sudden a walker will attack you and you have to hit the A button a certain amount of times really, really fast in order to push the walker away far enough that you can hit another button to punch the walker, or give somebody time to shoot the walker because they're far enough away from you, if that makes sense. Otherwise, they're biting you and you're dead. You know, all those things that you would expect from like a survival horror type game. And then there's a few sequences where there's some light shooter action where, you know, you're able to pull up a shotgun, and it's very light. It's not, you know, like you're not playing Halo or anything. But, you know, there's sequences where you need to be defending a camp or something that you're in. It's really more story-driven, though. Really having to make choices and find things in order to solve puzzles in really intense situations. And you wind up in places where, you know, you're in cities where you have to, in a drugstore, get medicine really fast in order to save somebody in your party. And you can't progress any further until you get the medicine to save that person. That might not even turn out the way you expect. And again, you've got the tentative relationships that you've got in the current band in the television show, where some people get along really well with you and other people want nothing to do with you. Plus, you've got the fact that Lee's a convicted felon. Some people know.
Yeah.
And do they keep the secret or not, and why? And should you keep the secret as your character or not, and why? It's a really cool game. I can't recommend it enough. It's on episode 4 now, which has had a major cliffhanger in the end of it, where I'm not going to say anything about it other than to say, traveling with this guy for 4 episodes, the cliffhanger was mind-blowing, where I was just like, wow, that is cool. I can't believe they went there. We've got episode 5 coming up that's going to have a conclusion to this storyline. And I guess, if I've read everything online right, they're booked to have a second season of games.
Oh, cool.
With a new storyline. So for anybody out there that's interested in this, and the system specs, I think, are very reasonable. And it's available not just on the PC, but on the major game systems as a download. And it's also available on your iOS, and I'm assuming the Android. And I don't know for sure it's for Android. I have an iPad, so I just know it's available in that store. So there's a lot of ways to access this game. So the system specs aren't through the roof, so it's very accessible. Like, Jim, I'm sure your computer could run this. It's not expensive. You know, it's like really easy to buy like the season pass and to just get all the games, and it's fun. It's a different sort of gaming. So anybody that's in the Walking Dead story that would like to have some interactivity and feel like you're treading new ground that you're not getting in either the comic or the TV show, I can't recommend the game enough. It's to me, it's one of the finest examples of what you can do with the point-and-click adventures, and I think for Telltale, it's easily their best game series, because I think they've really perfected the interactivity of it. If you played, I liked their Back to the Future game series, but I think this took their gameplay to the next level. Like, I thought that was good. I think this is great. Just to put it in for anybody that played the Back to the Future series, because I'm assuming a lot of the people listening are, you know, fans of this kind of geeky stuff like I am. And I thought their Back to the Future series was good, but this is like mind-blowingly cool. So cool. I just want to shout it out, and because I figure there's some people out there who might have missed this. And you can go to their website. It's available on Steam. It's available on the Xbox Live Store and the PlayStation Store and stuff like that for everybody. And if anybody out there's played it, please let me know if you like it as much as I do, because I'd definitely be interested in people's opinions on it.
Yeah, because I missed it, so... But it was weird because when all those games, and I think there's a Facebook game out there, and I just, for some reason, I never got into those type of, that type of game and that type of options. You know, I enjoy my TV show, I enjoy the comic, but I'm not, I don't know, it's weird. For some reason, I just never said, oh, I got to do the game now. It just, like, I have my versions, I have my, my story that gets told.
This one, though, you might want to give it a shot, because it really is like watching a television episode. it's not like gaming where you're like constantly at the controller or anything. You are watching a story unfold around you. You just have an impact on the decisions. And you are, I mean, you're doing things in the game. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you're just sitting there watching a movie. I don't mean it that way. But it's really story driven. So for anybody that's a fan of stories, you definitely want to consider. Actually, if you try it, let me know, because I'd love to see what you think of it, because I know you haven't really experienced that type of game. And I think it's really something that would be up your alley, because you don't have to put a lot of time into it. You know, it's because it's episodic. You know, each episode fills itself in a couple hour gap. So and you really can make progress in the game in short stretches, where you can come home from work and play it for like 15, 20 minutes, and you've made some progress in the game.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
so it's really worthwhile, and you do feel like over the time you've gone on a journey with the characters, just like the TV show. The writing in it, I think, is that good. So it like I said, it's not like you're rehashing stuff you've seen in the comics and the TV show. It's a new story that mirrors the events that are going on in the comic and the TV show.
Oh, that's neat.
But anyway, on the TV show, is there a character that we haven't really talked about that you want to discuss, or is there anything event-wise? I mean, there's so much to discuss. I know a lot of our focus has been on Season 3, and how can it not be? That's what's currently going on now. I love the whole prison thing and how that's played out. Is there anything that we haven't really discussed that you'd like to mention real quick?
Here, let me get your opinion.
Okay.
Weapons, weapon choices. I have a very distinctive couple weapon ideas I would go with, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Oh, anything at hand. I personally would go with anything that keeps them at a farther distance. I like Daryl's arrows, and the reason why I like, the crossbow and being able to use the arrows and stuff like that is you can recover and continue using them. The problem with bullets is you fire bullets, they're done. Now, if I saw a gun, would I pick up a gun? Absolutely, because of the stopping power and the distance range you can get from a gun, and the fact that over time you can practice it and really get really good at it. But I love like the people that get up close to screwdrivers and stuff like that. But I'm not doing that. I'm all for like if I've got a screwdriver, I'm attaching that to some form of pull, and you better believe I'm poking people from like 10 feet away. I mean, that's for me. I would look for things that like could project outward and do the same kind of head damage that you're getting from the screwdriver from a greater distance. Like, kind of the bow staff concept, but something, if I could get something that telescopes, because you know how they have those things that like, you can shrink them in on themselves and then you can push a
the
button.
collapsible batons.
Collapsible batons. A collapsible baton sharp to me would be a great weapon, because you can impact it from a distance, where your actual, beginning of the whole process is from a distance, but then you can pull it out and whap somebody else with it right away. That's the tricky part of this series is you have a limited amount of resources. So, you want your guns and things, your big... I mean, if I found a bazooka, am I using it? You better believe it. Because it's a bazooka. Why not? I'd fire it right into the center of a bunch of those things. But you really want up-close personal weapons that you can use without getting too close. That's where I would definitely have, though, a belt of more than one weapon, because if something gets stuck in one of the walkers, you've got to have a backup. You don't have just one thing on you. I think that would be the biggest mistake. So I don't know that I have like a set weapon set. I haven't really thought of it that way. I've more thought of it as I would accessorize. I would have things that are as light as possible, but as strong as possible at the same time, that can give me as much distance as possible while being effective. For somebody like me who doesn't have a whole lot of combat training. I exercise and stuff like that, but have I had like a lot of martial arts training or anything? No. So I want weapons that I can use and feel productive with, considering my own limitations, because I don't have that kind of background. So that would be things I would grab that I feel comfortable waving around, swinging around, and really doing skull damage right away. Because you want one shot at that. You do not want to keep poking and prodding at that thing, because then they get closer to you. And that's how you get surrounded. That's how you get more of them overcoming you. But what you obviously thought specifics as far as weapons, so I'm really curious, because I haven't gone there. What would you choose for weapons?
Well, first off, you got to, those who, fail to learn from the past are destined to repeat it. So you start looking to the past warriors. What was some of the more effective fighting tactics? And you go to probably the founding fathers of military tactics, and that's the Spartans. Big ass shield to cover your body, and then a long spear.
Yeah.
You lock your shields, you form that impregnable wall so the walkers can't get you, and then the guy goes "Chah!" and stabs him in the head. That right there is, lock and file formation. And I was cheering when in the prison when T-Dog picked up that riot shield. I was like, right there, you need the shield. I would have started right from day one having some type of shield, some type of thing, keeping them at bay, and then you take the sword and you stab them in the head. You take the spear, you stab them in the head. You do the where, okay, I'm blocking, you kill them, tactics. You need to have that team dynamics, and as much as I do enjoy a good gunplay, I do enjoy, guns and whatnot, and that type of, the noise that you get from a gun draws everybody in. You drop them silently with a sword. You drop them with a spear. You do anything like that. You're not pulling in walkers from a mile or 2 miles away. You're just dealing with the ones around you. Plus, if you can take them down silently, you're not going to, aggravate, the ones that are right there. If you're far enough distance from them, they're more docile. So you take down silently, and then you drop them down. And you can take out a very large group with minimal effort if you just work together. Two, you keep it quiet. Don't go don't go shooting all over the place. So for me, blades, bows, and shields. That's my survival to the zombie apocalypse.
I liked the bit talking about the prison when they were like in this squad. It was Rick and his crew, and they were each watching a side. Rick was really trying hard to take these people, because I would be one of those guys that would, like, I'm with you. I like that kind of, that's why I was thinking spears and something long, because you want to keep them as far away from you as possible, because you don't want any chance of anybody getting bit when you're doing these kind of raids. So, and I wasn't thinking of the shields. I love you bringing that into it, because why wouldn't you have those? Like movies like 300 and stuff like that. You definitely want to be watching that film and using those, like, you want to, Sparta!
Battle formation!
Yes, yeah. I love 300. So, I mean, those are the guys you want to bring with you and invade a prison. So it was, that's the kind of mentality. And I guess I was kind of going for that, but I wasn't thinking of the shields, and that's brilliant that you brought that up. It's kind of like a duh. But
that's the strength of having a larger group. The more people you have in, you get different ideas. Mm-hmm. Get people who actually maybe, are a little bit better with the sword, can actually make a spear, or can make bows and arrows. And it's that argument about the prisoners, where do you kill them, do you let them live? And part of me is of the mindset, you let them live, you bring them into the group, you keep an eye on them, but you can always learn from them. And who knows? If you need to take somebody down, then you take them down. But it's a tough call. But I was always of the impression, let them into the group.
Yes.
See if they give you a reason to take them down.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really liked during that squad sequence that I was mentioning as well, and it kind of goes along with what you're saying, they took the people that could potentially be a weak link to that squad that they formed there, and they kept them in a point of safety. Anybody that could possibly be a distraction, let's keep them safe. We have the option to do that. And when we go out in our formation, let's take our best people, the ones who are each going to be able to keep and cover a side, so that there really is no weak link to that side that we've built, this kind of circle that we're developing there. I thought that was really great. And that's where the two guys in the prison could potentially be an asset. They can make that circumference that they're creating there that much larger and that much stronger by being a part of it. And that's where maybe you keep then the shield like that you're forming, and those one or two that are in the middle with spears poking out. And you start to expand over time and really get people where you say, hey, we are going to do this all the time, and we are going to perfect it to the point where taking down these zombies as a group is a science, and nobody in our group is ever going to get hurt from them, because this is the way we're going to invade anywhere. And we're going to make sure we wipe out all of them until, there's no worries in our area. So I like the twist in the comics, and I want to make sure we discuss this too, of the fact that they found out that you don't need to be bitten The twist in the TV show where you found out you don't need to be bitten in order to turn. You die, you turn.
That's in the comic as well.
I know it is, but it was something that they didn't discover until later.
Oh, okay.
And I like the way that it was, because I felt like it came out earlier in the TV show than it did in the comics. And maybe it's just the way that the TV show is watching with the shorter seasons that I'm thinking that way. But it comes off, because my wife was commenting on it at a point in time in there where I'm like, I don't remember in the comic thinking of this now.
Yeah, it wasn't until they were solidly in the prison that they learned that.
And in the TV show, they knew long before that.
They learned that, well, on Herschel Farm. Well, actually, before that, Rick learned, and then he told the people after Herschel Farm. So,
what I liked about, and I guess why I'm noting this, what I liked about them finding it out earlier, and that's the twist that I'm talking about, is it affected for a lot of people the way they view Rick. Because Rick really, I think, if you did a survey of the crew, most people trusted him as being a tried and true, honest guy that they kind of knew where they stood with him. You know, even if they didn't 100% agree with him, they knew who he was and what he was all about. The second he lied to him about something that huge, it changed their viewpoint on him. Like, you know, it led to that outburst that he had. You know, where basically, if you're going to stay with me, this is the way things are. I mean, it was like something out of Unforgiven, you know, with Clint Eastwood at the end, where, you know, when Clint does that great speech at the end of Unforgiven, I felt like Rick was having one of those moments where it's like, nobody better mess with me or you're done.
That was a coming to Jesus speech right then and there. And I loved, that was another cool moment, Rick moment for me. You know, it had to be said. It had to be the, you know, this is the way it's going to be. This is the chain of command. No reluctant leader in this guy right then and there.
No, but in some ways, I think it broke down, I think, the friendships for some of them that he had. I think we're starting to see some repairs of that along the way, although recent events might have changed that a little bit too. But I really like how that has all played out. And I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to imply that it didn't happen in the comics. It was another example of, we talked about how timing of certain events, certain characters being in certain places, were done differently in the TV show. I thought that twist added just a slight dynamic difference to the storyline that kept it fresh too. I like, and I highly recommend this, if you're listening to this and you've only watched the TV show and never touched the comic, I really like right now I've gone back through and I've started rereading the comic from the beginning, just because I'm kind of enjoying watching these scenes unfold in the comic books so drastically different because of slight tweaks that they've done in the television show. It's worth reading the comic because it's a different story in the way that it plays out. And it's so if you like this world and you're like, well, I'm watching it on TV, so if I read the comic, I'm just going to see the same thing. And reading the comic means I'm going to know what's going to happen down the road. All bets are off. And that's one of the great things about this whole experience. I think that's brilliant that you can. I think this is one of those TV shows where, if you are somebody listening to this who's a diehard comic fan and you've been looking for that comic to get your friend into, and you know that they're a Walking Dead fan, hand them the comic book. It's different. And yet, for a fan of the television show, there's a lot to love in the the comic is brilliant. But wouldn't you say this is a great latch-on point for somebody who's never read comics, Jim?
Yeah, oh, well, I got my friends at work that I'm showing them, you know, I introduced them to in-stock trades. I told them the difference because they really knew absolutely nothing about comics. I'm like, this is what a trade paperback, this is the hardcover, explain the differences between the two and just help them, you know, pick out. I said, here, this is a website you can trust. Or you can go to this comic shop. I gave them the name of the local shop by me. That's a really good place. I'm like, just go in there, tell them you want to get the Walking Dead trade, you know, volume 1. They'll point you into the right direction. This is what they'll point out to you, you know, and it's, you know, so definitely this is a great entry latch-on point. This is the great place to start with people.
I'd say the hardcover is a great gift for a friend. Like, if you want to get them something nice, the hardcovers, their deluxe hardcovers they're doing contain 12 issues. Every one of them contains 12 issues of the series. And it's an ongoing collection. And they're beautiful. I mean, it feels like a very substantial piece. There's no dust jacket. It just got this beautifully illustrated wraparound hardcover cover to the whole thing. And they've got a unique dress that looks really great on a shelf. I collected the singles. And I switched to the hardcovers because they're so beautiful. I think you've got some of those, don't you?
I've ordered them. They have not arrived yet. So as soon as they arrive,
the hardcover's the way to go. I mean, they're like amazing what Image is doing with those hardcovers. They're really, really great. And the color tone on them and everything fits the series. I can't recommend them enough, and just do yourself a favor and grab those. And if you're a reader of the comics and like, I don't know, I never bothered picking up the collected version, I switched to this because I was pretty secure that Walking Dead is doing well enough that, like, if I start buying these, it's going to be effective for the series. And I'm hoping that these collector's editions do add to the sales value of this series at this point. But I would definitely hand one of those hardcovers to a friend who likes Walking Dead, hands down, and just say, because it feels like a nice gift, to somebody when they unwrap it. It feels like you're giving them something substantial and something special. So it's a great gift in the holiday season. And you recommended In Stock Trades. And, I want to shout out because they're a sponsor of the show. What a great way. You can get to that order, that $50 relatively quickly. And you can buy some friends some trades. Last year, I gave a lot of trades out to people who are casual comic fans. To just think, and hardcovers that I really thought, like that Black Mirror, that Batman 12-issue thing, I gave that out to a lot of people that I know didn't read it because I just thought it was a really great Batman story that was very contained. And Walking Dead is something that I've given before to friends that I knew didn't have it. And I wouldn't hesitate to give it again because I think it's just really great stuff. Is there anything else you want to say about Walking Dead that we really haven't?
Man, this has been a really cool experience. I'm digging this TV show. We've lost a couple TV shows that I was really passionate and fiery about. So Walking Dead is like, yes, I have, a good TV show that I can watch and that I can enjoy.
It's like, these cable series are just amazing. Like I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones, which, have you watched that?
I used to, but I lost HBO, so I don't watch it anymore.
Okay. I jumped on Game of Thrones really late. What I like about it is, and why I'm making the connection here is, it's these shows with these shorter seasons, but seem to have this like tremendous production value and tremendous writing. Walking Dead fits in that category of just great production value, great writing, credible acting talent. Cable's really delivering these series that are just very unique and very different from network television. I love network television. There's a lot of shows I'm really enjoying on network television. So if you're going to get me to jump to something else, it needs to be something special. Really high-quality show. It's on my short list of favorite programs. And I love that I can watch it with my wife. She's very into it as well. And my wife, when it comes to horror television and film and stuff like that, there's times where when we'll watch that stuff, we've got to watch it at a certain time. But she gets very into scary television and things. And I love it because it's a geek culture thing that I can share with my wife, which I can't always share that stuff with her because, first of all, she lives with an insane comic fan. And once I start blabbing, I keep going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny. Real shock to anybody listening to this. But it's one of those things where I like that it's something that's important to me, and it's kind of a little connecting thread where, for her, it's a little piece of my little geekiness that I can kind of share with her, and she's into it in her own way. And doing a lot of the speculating that we do about comics and television in her own way, which is fun as well. And asking me questions about the comic book and those characters and things. I secretly want to try and get her to read some of the comics, just because I think she might, if she likes the series enough, she might try to read some of the comics. So at some point in time, I might see if she has any interest in reading it at all, just because she asks me about it a lot. That's why, in a weird way, if that gets her to read some form of comic book, I will be shocked that it came from this. Because if you had told me like 10 years ago that the way I'm going to get my wife to read comics on any level is going to be through a horror comic, I would have laughed. So I don't know if this is going to be the one, but I'm certainly going to give it a shot if she's interested to letting her read some of this, because I think it's great.
Cool.
But Walking Dead, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about this one.
Yeah, I know.
Holy caffeine!
Once again, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InSocks.
Con and Insock.
Con! Actually, let's just go with that. Sponsoring us this episode, just because we're Star Trek fans, sponsoring us this episode once again is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is your comic book pre-order source. If you aren't checking them out, do yourself a favor and go to their website and see the amazing deals they offer. Right on RagingBullets.com, our show website, you can find links directly to them. They've got amazing deals. I'm a huge fan of their website and the service they provide. My comic books always arrive, and not just comic books, statues, figures, everything that they carry there arrive in pristine condition. I really am a huge fan of their service. And over at InStockTrades.com, they're your collected edition source. You can find everything there. Amazing discounts from both companies, and it's a great opportunity for all of us, in the time when, the economy's tight, to be able to buy and still participate in all these cool things that we all know and love. I hope you guys really enjoyed this first offering. I want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. We love having you part of the show, and any of the calls anything that comes out of DC that you want to chat about on these episodes, I will save them and put them on the next episode that we do next month. So if you want to call in and add any discussion points to our topic, whether it's about Walking Dead or anything outside of DC Comics that you would like us to discuss or get our thoughts on, please feel free to call in. I will save those voicemails, like I mentioned. It'd be kind of a fun way to do an interactive episode as well from our listening audience. And Jim, our next episode, we're going to be jumping back into Raging Bullets, and we're going to be discussing Animal Man, Swamp Thing, Justice League Dark, and Frankenstein on our regular Raging Bullets episode. And we will do another one of these pop culture and whatnot episodes in a month, where we discuss some things that we're enjoying outside of DC. So for everyone who's a regular listener to our show, we will see you next week.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Villains are closing in, be they Thenengard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.